I'll tell you a story. My wife, Jana, worked at one of the first banks post-Soviet Union breakup in Kazakhstan, which is pretty neat, I think. She still has friends in banking in Kazakhstan that she stays in touch with. And I'm in Sunnyvale, California, the heart of Silicon Valley. That's important to know. One of her friends works for a bank. The CEO felt that they were doing a good job of writing software because finance is software. That's all banking is moving ones and zeros from one place to another, software. Then he came out to Silicon Valley and he started touring some of the famous companies, Facebook, Google, Amazon, et cetera, whatever. Realized that he wasn't as good as they thought they were. And he says, this is something we need to fix. We need to be better because these companies are doing better. And if banking is about software and these companies are writing better software, then eventually they might overtake us. We got to figure out how to write better software. And the reason, he kept asking people, what's the reason? And one word kept coming up among others, and that word was agile. So he goes back to Moscow and he tells everybody at his bank, we all need to be agile. This filters down all the way to Almaty, Kazakhstan, to this bank that Jana's friend worked at. And they were going to have a day or two, I think it was one day of agile training. So they said, wouldn't it be neat if we brought in somebody from Silicon Valley as a special guest? So I got to be a special guest at this thing. And I presented that first day introduction. So it was heavily scripted, but we got to the end and they asked two questions. The second one was more interesting. They said, we're all managers. And it was a group of about 500 managers from all over Kazakhstan who come in for this thing. It was a huge room. They said, we're managers at a bank. What do we do in this new agile world? And I gave them a metaphor. I said, management in the agile world is a lot like being a gardener. As a gardener, you provide the right soil, the right sunlight, the right nutrients, everything that the seed needs to grow. And if the seed has it within itself to grow, it will grow. What you cannot do is you cannot throw the seed on the hard ground or the concrete and yell at it to grow, which is what a lot of management practices do. The interesting thing is, I don't know how they translated it because I couldn't understand the Russian. They could have said, this guy's going to be done talking soon, free beer and pizza after in the lobby. But I think they translated it okay. And they basically stood up and gave a standing ovation to that answer, which tells me that they had a lot of managers who were throwing their seeds on the hard concrete and yelling, grow. The other interesting thing about that story is I've been telling that story now for years. One of the people in one of my classes, his name is Dom. Some of you are familiar with Dom. He heard that story and he took it to heart. And he used to give presentations and things. He would work with companies. He's from Thailand. He's the one who did the translation of the Scrum Guide into Thai. He went back to Thailand and he would go and meet with companies and he would do agile gardening as a metaphor for teaching these people, and they build these little gardens. Isn't that neat how the world works? But that's my story on fertile soil. That's the job of leadership, is to create that fertile soil, is to create that culture.